Hi besties, welcome back to Joy's Fashion World. So in today's tutorial, we're making this beautiful top you are seeing. Is a cut together corporate top with no pattern needed. You don't need any pattern to cut this top. So this tutorial is going to be easy peasy. So this style has been trending for a while now. A client asked me to make it for her and I said why not. I decided to film it for my besties. So if this is what you want to learn how to cut and sew, you definitely have to keep on watching till the end. And before we continue, please like this video, drop me lovely comments and share with your friends that love fashion. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are yet to do so, and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to get notified whenever I drop a new video. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'll be using this vintage crepe for this tutorial. You can use any fabric of your choice. Firstly is to input your vertical measurement. So this is me marking my starting line, also known as the shoulder line. After which, the next thing you want to do is to input your chest line. So for my chest line, I place my tape starting from the starting line and I mark 10 inches. That is the chest line of my client, and I use my chalk to indicate it. The next point you want to mark is your waistline, which is 16 inches, and the length of the top you are working with. And the length of the top I'm working with is 24 inches. Mind you, we are cutting the back piece first, so this is the back piece of this top. So after I was done marking my chest line, my waistline, and the length of the top, I went ahead to connect those points into a straight line using my ruler. That is the starting line, the chest line, the waistline, and the full length of this top we are working with. Next is to input your body measurement. So place your tape on the starting line, and the first thing we're going to input is our neck width, which is 3.5 inches, while for the depth is 1 inch, and 1 inch is for any individual. After which you connect the 2 points with a curve as seen. Next is to input your shoulder measurement. So you'll be inputting half of your shoulder measurement, which mine is 8.5 inches, and I chalk it down. From that 8.5 inch mark, you input your sleeve length, which basically for this top, the sleeve length is around 8 to 9 inches. From your starting line, go down with 1 inch, which will serve as our shoulder slope, and you connect it back with a slant line into the 8.5 inch you mark initially. So next is to input your quarter of your bust circumference. So I input quarter of my client bust circumference plus additional 2 inch, one for ease allowance and one is for seam allowance. Also on the waistline, input quarter of your waist measurement plus 2 inch for ease, and on the full length, input quarter of your hip circumference plus additional 2 inches. After which you connect the 3 points together, that is from the chest line to the waist line and then down to the full length of the top. So you can see what we have after we are done connecting. The next thing you want to do is to mark your sleeve opening. So for this tutorial, I make use of 9 inches for the sleeve opening and I chalk it down. After which I'm going to connect the 2 points, that is from my shoulder slope to the sleeve opening point, with a line as seen. The next thing you want to do is to go in with ½ inch from that point and you connect it back into your shoulder line as seen. That is to make the sleeve slant, not standing straight. After which you connect it back into the side of your top as seen, just the way you see me doing. So watch closely and you will understand, and you can see what we have. So the next thing you want to do is to go up with 2 inches from the length of the full top and you connect it back that way. So from the length, go up with 2 inches and you connect it, and by the side I'm going out with ½ inch and I'll connect it back into my waistline. That is to have a little bit of hip exaggeration on that point, and you can see what we have. With this we are done. We're going to cut through the neckline to the shoulder, down to the sleeve opening, then to the side of our top and the hem of this top. So let's cut it out. Okay, so after cutting, yours should also be looking like this. You can see what we have. So I'm going to pin it at some spot and we'll be using this back piece to cut out the front piece. Alright, so for the front piece, after you might have fold your fabric into two, the first thing you want to do on your front piece is to mark 1 inch starting from the starting line down to the length of your front piece. So you mark 1 inch all through, after which use your ruler to connect those points into a straight line. Once you are done with that, the next thing you want to do is to bring in your back piece and you place it on the folded fabric. Ensure you are placing your back piece starting from that 1 inch you mark initially. So the next thing you want to do is to extend the length of your top. So place your tape from the end of that back piece and you mark 5 inch for the extent of the front piece. That's depending on how long you want that V shape in front to look like. So for this tutorial, I extend mine with 5 inch. So I was angry at this point because my camera was not really capturing that side, so I was angry. I'm sorry for that. I hope you understand. Next is to mark 2 inches away from that 1 inch. You mark 2 inches inward, and next is to indicate the waistline on the folded piece of your front fabric. And for the front neckline, for the depth, I make use of 7 inches and I indicate it with my chalk. Then by the side, you are going to connect it with a curve like this back into that 5 inch you extend for the front piece. So from the side of the back piece, you extend it into that 5 inch, after which we are going to cut it using the side of the back piece as a guide. Okay, so after cutting, this is what we have. The next thing you want to do is to also indicate the width of your neckline on the front piece, after which remove the back piece and connect the width of the front neckline to the depth of the front neckline. That is the 3.5 inch to the 7 inches, and you connect it with your ruler with a V line like this. Next, from that waistline, you go down with 1 inch and you connect it, and this is for decency's sake. I don't want the navel of my clients to be out, but you can leave just like that. After which, from that point, you connect it with a V slant line the way you see me doing back into that 2 points we mark initially, away from the 1 inch we mark. So you can see what we have. The next thing you want to do is to cut it out. You cut it out, you also cut your front neckline and you slit it open, because for the front piece we are having 2 different pieces. Yeah, you can see what our front piece is looking like after we are done cutting. You can see what we have, and yours should also be looking like this. Next is to cut out the belt for this top. So if you check the style very well, there is this belt on the side of the top, so we're going to cut it out. So I'll be using this piece of fabric to cut out my belt. So for the width, I have 9 inches here, while for the length I have 30 inches. So I'm going to split this fabric into 2, leaving 4.5 inches for the width of each belt. So a belt width is 4.5 inch, while the length is still 30 inches. And yeah guys, that is the end of the cutting part. So now let's head to the sewing part of this tutorial. Alright, so starting with the back piece of this top, I'm going to use a bias tape to turn the neckline of my top. So you can decide to use a different lining in order to turn your fabric all together, or you can use seam fabric in order to cut a facing for it. So I'm using a bias tape for this tutorial. I'm going to place my bias tape on the right side of my fabric. I'm going to use my pin to hold it in place. I'll use the pin to secure it. So I'm going to use the folded edge on the bias tape as a guide in order to sew it round, after which I'll flip it to the wrong side of my fabric and I'll use hemming gum in order to hold it in place. And we do same on the front piece. So this is our front piece and this is what it's looking like when we open it. I'm also going to use my bias tape in order to turn the neckline and the down part, that's the V side of this top, with a bias tape. So I'll place my bias tape on the right side of the front piece. So this is one part of the front piece. I'm going to use the folded edge on the bias as a guide to stitch it down, and I'll also do same on the V side of this down part, using the bias as a guide to stitch it, and I'll turn it over and use my hemming gum to do so. So after I was done stitching, you can see this is the back piece, and I'm going to take it to my ironing table and give it a good press using my hemming gum to hold it in place. And also this is the front piece. This is what it's looking like. I'll do that and I'll be right back. Alright, so you can see this is what it's looking like after I was done using my hemming gum to hold the bias tape in place. You can decide to stitch it down, but I don't want any visible stitches on this top, so that's why I use my hemming gum to hold it in place. Based on your preference, you do what you want to do with your top. So the next thing you want to do is to join both the front piece and the back piece together. So we'll start by joining the shoulder of of the top together. So I'll be using my pin to hold it in place before taking it to my sewing machine and stitch it down. So I'll use 1/2 inch to stitch it down. I'll also join the other side of my front piece to the back piece using my pin to hold it in place, and then taking it to my sewing machine and stitch it with 1/2 inch. While on the sleeve opening, I'm also going to use my bias in order to turn it. So I'll place my bias on the right side as seen, and then I'm going to turn it over to the wrong side and use my hemming gum to hold it in place. I will also do that and show you what it's looking like. I will do same on both sides of the sleeve and on the shoulders. Okay, so alright, after joining our two pieces together, that is the front and the back piece of this top, by joining the shoulders using 1/2 inch, that is both shoulders, and also turning the sleeve with my bias tape, you can see what I have, and yours should also be looking like that. Next thing you want to do is to close up the center front using that 1 inch we mark or we left initially. But if you decide to put a button to this, you can cut another different fabric as interface. You use it to turn that part of the cloth and you add your button to it all the same. So the next thing you want to consider is to close the side of your top. But before doing that, you need to attach your belt. So let's go and sew our belt. So for the belt, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch it just the way you see me using my chalk to mark it on both belts. So I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch it down, and I'll turn it right side out, give it a good press, and be right back. So after I was done doing that, you can see what we have. Our two belts is ready. The next thing you want to do is to attach it to the top. So you bring in your top and align it properly. So the next thing you want to consider is to close up the side of your top. So before doing that, I'm going to use my pin in order to hold it in place before taking it to my sewing machine. So for the belt, we are going to insert our belt right before the waistline. You can see where I place the belt before your waistline. You place the belt before your waistline. Then I will continue with my pinning before taking it to my sewing machine, and then use 1 inch in order to stitch it down. And I'm going to do same on both sides, and I will be right back. While for the hem of this top, I'm also going to use my bias tape in order to turn the hem of the top, after which I'm going to use my hemming gum to hold the bias tape in place. And with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial. So I will do that and I will be right back. And also on the center front, after sewing it down, I'm also going to open it up that way, and I'm going to use my hemming gum in order to place it down. And taran, we have come to the end of this tutorial. You can see how neat and beautiful this top is looking like. Easy peasy. Yours should also be looking this beautiful and neat. So you can see what the top is looking like after I was done joining the side and then turning the hem of this top. Thank you for watching this tutorial till the end. You reaching this point means you enjoyed this video. Before leaving, don't forget to like this video, drop me lovely comments. When will you be recreating this, and in what type of fabric will you be using to recreate this? Share this with fashions lover, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are yet to do so, and turn on your notification bell so that you'll be the first to get notified whenever I drop a new video. See you in the next one. Bye.